All right, you guys, you definitely need to study for this test, as I've said all year. This is not like Saxon, so you have to go back and make sure you're practicing past chapters, especially stuff from first semester if you forgot anything. So these are some tips for the exam before you guys start doing all the review. So first of all, do any released AP exam questions. You guys can go to AP Central, and they have answer keys if you want to practice any of those. Definitely do all the problems that we do in class and study any of the ones that you miss. You can also use AP Classroom, which is on College Board, their website, for more practice. In the back of the book, there are formulas, or you can review your yellow sheet. Make sure you know them. If you flip to actually just the very last page of your book, it's the back cover. They have the inference procedures for every single test or interval. So you might look over that. This website, I'll probably have you guys practice when I get back, but if you want to look this up and click on all the tests that we've done, then you can start practicing which problem goes with what, or which test or interval goes with what example. And this is super important, you guys. Make sure you know that worksheet or that sheet that got passed out, the top 10 phrases that pay. All right. So in general, you guys pace yourself. Make sure you get a good night's sleep. Review. There's some exam tips in the back of the book. Eat a healthy lunch. The test is at noon. Make sure your calculator's working. On the multiple choice section, there are 40 questions. You get 90 minutes for it, so don't spend too long on any one question. Well done. Okay, and the free response section is 6 questions. You have 90 minutes for, and you definitely don't want to run out of time before question 6. Question 6 is weighted more than all the other ones. It's a little bit harder. You want to save yourself time on that one. Start with the ones you know how to do those first. And basically, you should spend approximately 12 minutes on each free response 1 through 5, and then 30 minutes on question 6. So you're going to need time for question 6, and it is usually a little bit longer and a little more thinking involved in question 6. So how they score the test, the multiple choice is worth 50 points, and it's 1.25 points for each correct answer. And you definitely want to answer every question. There's no penalty for guessing. The free response is also worth 50 points. You can get a 0 through a 4 on each question. On 1 through 5, they multiply that by 1.875 for a total of 37.5 points. Okay. Question number 6 is weighted more than that. So again, that's why you want to make sure you at least start it, try it. So they'll multiply by 3.125. It's worth 12.5 points. In 2012, if you earned 70 points or more, that was a 5. And 57 points or more was a 4. 44 points or more was a 3. And 33 points or more was a 2. All right, so don't type in data just because it's there. Read through the whole question. Sometimes you don't actually need the data. On inference questions, be sure you use the stat tests or intervals, confidence intervals, for your calculations. And you actually only want to show the formula if you're getting the same answers, all right? If your formulas don't match up when you plug stuff in to what your calculator told you, then erase your formulas and your work, all right? But ideally show both and substitute in what you put into the formulas, okay? For the calculator speak, this binomial CDF, where it just has like nothing labeled, no full credit there, you guys, all right? This actually does give you full credit just by labeling it. It is minimal, but it still counts for full credit. Obviously, if it's a 4-step problem, do state plan, do conclude. Don't write any acronyms on the test, right? So don't do SOCS for socks. Actually write what it means if you're going to use it. Or same with this, don't put SPDC, put state plan, do conclude if you're actually going to write those words down. Okay, watch what you say. Misuse of terms or notation is a mandatory deduction. For example, if you're doing the hypotheses, You should not have x bar 1 equals x bar 2, right? You never use the statistics, you use the parameters. So for example, that should say mu1 equals mu2. You should only use mu's and p's, no p hats, in your state part. All right, if you say there's confounding when there isn't, that would be a problem. Using experimental language in an observational study, so don't forget that blocking goes only with experiments. It does mean a similar thing to stratifying, but stratifying goes with sampling or surveys in an observational study. Okay, only use terms or symbols that you know. It's better to explain in your own words than to use a term incorrectly. And if you're unsure on notation, just use words instead of symbols. So they give you a lot of space on the AP exam. That doesn't mean you need to fill it all in, all right? So just make sure you answer the question and you can be concise, that's fine. You don't need to fill in the whole space. So obviously show all your work, sketch graphs, make really nice graphs that have everything labeled, all right? And always use units if you have units. Otherwise, you don't get any credit. Just a reminder on these distributions. So like a distribution of sample data is just one sample. So if we were passing around a bag of red chips and blue chips, and I told you to draw out 20, sample data might say, well, we had 11 red chips and we had 9 blue chips, and that would be the distribution of just one sample, and you would label your axes and everything, okay? Population distribution, let's say I knew that in the bag there were 100 blue chips and 100 red chips, all right? So that would be your population distribution. And the sampling distribution, you guys, is when you take a whole bunch of samples and maybe I do the proportion that are red, and remember, this should be a whole bunch of dots that ends up being normally distributed, all right? And that's the sampling distribution of a statistic. So either an X bar or a P hat. It's when you take a whole bunch of them, okay? Obviously, read the question and answer the question. So take your time enough that you read and you understand what it's asking, and go back at the end and make sure you're actually answering the question. Lots of students lose credit every year for not reading carefully and for not answering the question that was actually asked. So make sure you take enough time to read carefully and answer the question. All right, so you guys should now be working on a worksheet called Choosing the Correct Inference Method, so you can practice seeing if you know which inference method goes with what type of problem.